So good afternoon, everyone out in internet land. This is a Tuesday in August, and are you out shopping for Christmas yet? Oh yes, I'm telling you right now, Chris, we're going to turn around and it's going to be Christmas. But this is Yvonne DeVita from Smart Conversations, and we're having a somewhat sunny day here in Binghamton. It's certainly better than it was yesterday. I don't want to complain about the weather because I can't handle. I mean, there's nothing like Mother Nature. Mother Nature manages the weather, but I do like it when Mother Nature is nice and gives me a sunny day. Today, we're going to talk with Chris Owen. And let me tell you, I met Chris recently at a networking event. He gave a presentation for and about the things you need to know as a small business owner that just knocked me off my chair. And I said right away, I need him to come here and talk about that because, as you know, I tell people all the time, writing a book is like starting a new small business. Chris, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. And I haven't started my Christmas shopping yet, but I love Christmas. So it's always on my mind.
Awesome. You're one. Okay. Okay. I have a friend who starts, she's probably starting now. I don't know, decorating. But let me tell people a little bit about you because I really want them to get the full picture here. Chris Owen is a seasoned professional with over 2 decades of experience in supporting, consulting, and championing small businesses. Presently, he holds the role of regional managing partner at J Galt, where he dedicates himself to advocating for small businesses nationwide. This is why he's here, folks. From an early age, Chris witnessed the profound impact that small businesses had on his community. His great uncle's establishments of ADEC, which employed the parents, aunts, uncles, and even classmates of Chris, left an indelible mark on him. With numerous family members still working at ADEC, the enduring legacy of entrepreneurship in his Pacific Northwest hometown was undeniable. That is a really wonderful paragraph. That is a really wonderful thing to, the way you described it and the fact that we're talking about family and used words like indelible and enduring legacy. Chris, those are writer's words. I like them.
Thank you.
During his young adult years, Chris gained valuable expertise by working with various small to medium-sized companies. Sales, operations, customer success, and marketing were among the areas in which he honed his skills. Fueled by his admiration for entrepreneurship, Chris eventually embarked on his own business ventures, becoming a small business owner alongside his wife. Today, he boasts multiple successful enterprises. He believes firmly that small to medium businesses and their owners serve as the heart and soul of their communities. This is something I believe also, Chris, as well as the backbone of our nation. Driven by his conviction, he devotes his time to advocating for, supporting, and uplifting these business owners and their companies. As regional managing partner at J Galt, Chris dedicates the majority of his efforts to educating business owners about the primary challenge faced by small business, which is cash flow. Through his guidance, he empowers small business owners to construct a robust business credit profile based solely on their EIN, which is the employer identification number, intricately tied to their business and entirely free from personal guarantees. Chris's goal is to equip entrepreneurs with the knowledge and tools they need to thrive in their ventures and achieve sustainable success. And I'll tell you something, Chris, I don't usually go through with the whole thing when people send me a bio that is extensive of that, but I needed to do that today because I felt like every single little piece in there was important for people to hear. So we're going to get started, though, on what you do for small businesses. And I want all of my authors out there and writers who would be authors to start paying attention and taking notes. Tell us some of the things that We think we know about being a small business owner, but we don't.
There's a lot of them, and I continue to learn them every single day. I want to share a story with you that probably answers that question better than just answering it. So I had the opportunity to sit down and meet Cole Wyatt, who is the CEO of J Galt Finance Suite. And we got to talking about cash flow, which, as you mentioned, is the number one problem facing small businesses. And to be frank, it was a problem that I never knew how to solve. And as we talked about ways to solve that, the idea of business credit, lines of credit, and credit cards came up. And I said, well, Cole, I'm not a huge business owner by any stretch of the imagination. And I reached over onto my desk right here and I pulled out a credit card and I said, but look, I've got this credit card right here and
Yeah.
it's got my business name on it. And when I saw the big smirk on his face, I realized that I had just stepped into it and that I just lined it up for him. I set him up with the perfect shot. And he said, well, Chris, let me tell you something. He's like, I don't know this for a fact, but I know it's true. I know that you probably gave him your social security number when you were applying for that credit card. And I'm like, well, yeah, I think you're right. I'm pretty sure you're right about that. He's like, well, and I could already tell that I had just continued to line it up for him because he's like, well, you think that's a business credit card, Chris, but I want to tell you something. It's a credit card that's personally guaranteed by you that happens to have the business name on it. He's like, now that's no different than if you have a teenage kid and you want to help them open up a credit card, but you're the one signing and guaranteeing it. You're treating your business just like you treat your kid. And that probably was the biggest lesson that I learned. And then it continued.
Yeah.
You talked about the separation of personal assets from business assets. And there's this concept that we call the corporate veil. Now, if you've established a business and you've talked to an accountant or a CPA, they probably talk to you about the corporate veil. So I won't get into the deep details of it. But essentially, the corporate veil is that thing that stands in between and protects our personal assets from our business assets. We live in a litigious society, so it's important to have that protection. And outside of that, I know for a fact that 1.3 million small businesses failed over the last 2 years. You want that protection there if worse comes, whether it's litigious nature or whether it's your business just simply didn't work out because you got outcompeted by a better mousetrap. Yeah. So that corporate veil is very important. Well, what I didn't know and what I came to know is that I was actually inadvertently piercing that corporate veil repeatedly because I was personally guaranteeing things. Things as simple as I pulled out the wrong debit card when I went to the coffee shop to have a lunch meeting and then reimbursed myself out of company money are small little pokes in that corporate veil. But when you talk about personally guaranteeing things that are on your business, well, that's a punch right through the corporate veil. So I really understood very succinctly at that moment that I was not paying very close attention to some of the very important things in my business. To be frank, I had a hard time sleeping that night.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was tough. I went to bed not, feeling really good about myself and going, man, what have I been doing wrong? And what if that, and what happens here? And, what if somebody decided to sue me because I said the wrong thing and they didn't get my advice perfectly right? Or, God help me, what if I was in downtown and I opened the car door and didn't pay attention and wham, truck hit me? Well, sucks for me, yes, of course, but what am I leaving behind for my wife, who is my business partner? What kind of a mess am I leaving behind? Is, I've now endangered the house, the car, retirement savings, any other assets that we may have acquired just because of what I didn't know. So I actually text Cole the next day and I'm like, I want you to know that you caused me to not sleep. And I'm like, I don't care if you don't want to bring me into the company as a managing partner. I need to get started fixing this and I need help from J Galt Finance Suite. So that's probably the biggest thing that I didn't know. And I think most business owners just simply don't know because I don't think that I'm unlike the other business owners out there in the world. I assumed I knew a lot more than I actually did. And this is something, as I'm going out and having conversations, I'm finding that most, if not every single person I talked to just simply didn't know.
Well, that is exactly the kind of thing I want to talk about, because when we have authors who, both authors that their primary business is going to be writing books. So those would be my fiction authors. But they're in a business now. They're in the business of earning money, writing a book. And they need to hear what you just said. But even more so when we're talking about my business authors who have a business And the book is either supposed to support the business or help grow the business. I am pretty confident that they don't know these insider things that you're talking about, because they're either solopreneurs, or maybe they work with their wife like you do, and I work with my husband, Tom. So they're just going blissfully along, like, I got this new credit card and it's going to be, oh, but I had to use it for this other thing also. Talk to us about, now, beyond the corporate veil, what are the things like, suppose an author is just getting started, and that one of the things they're using is their book as their launching pad. What should they know ahead of time?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're just getting started, you've got an opportunity to build that foundation, right? So I think that's really important. And like you said, whether you're an author that's writing books and that's your primary income source, or you're a thought leader or an expert or a business person who's utilizing a book as another form of marketing. And given my background in marketing, I want to applaud you. That's a great way to go about doing this. But either way, you need to make sure your foundation is shored up. It's very, very important to have a good, solid foundation so that your business looks and appears credible. That foundation is also key in helping to maintain and establish that corporate veil. So the J Galt team, we work through 125 checkpoints to make sure that your business is fully and completely set with its foundation. Now, some of those things seem pretty self-evident, and then I can tell you, again, from my personal experience, that they're not. So one of the most basics one is to make sure that your name is listed correctly everywhere, from your business registry to your bank account to any other places that your business registry is listed. Now, my name is Chris Owen, but legally I'm Christopher. I don't go by that very often. I think my grandma calls me it. My mom called me it while she was still around, and that's probably about it. But legally it's Christopher. And it would not shock you to find out that in a couple of places, I didn't realize that I was supposed to use my full legal name on a document. I had written Chris. So I had to get that stuff cleaned up. More surprisingly, I banked with the same credit union for 12 plus years now, and I love them, so I don't want to besmirch them in any way, shape, or form. But more recently, when I was opening up my most recent business banking account, I was sitting across the desk from, I think it was the assistant branch manager who was helping me out. And she looked at my debit card and she looked at my ID and was holding them up. And I could see her going back and forth. I'm like, no, I promise that's a real ID. I know it's the new pretty weird ones here from the state that we changed to follow the federal policy. And she's like, did you know that your name is misspelled on the debit card? I'm like, what, really? And I looked at it, and sure enough, it was missing the P in Christopher. And I'm like, wow, how does that happen? She's like, yeah, it's kind of weird. And then I pulled out my debit card for my personal, which is also through the same credit union. It was missing a P. And we come to discover that in their system, my name is missing a P, and for all accounts has been missing a P since the very first day that I opened up an account with them. Now, that never caused me an issue because I'd never actually gone through the process of getting corporate credit based off of my business's EIN yet. However, had I been, it would have been another one of those red flags that could have and would have prevented me from getting credit. And there's 125 checkpoints just like that.
That's so incredible. And that's kind of scares me a little bit, because my name, Yvonne DeVito, all right, that is my name. That's how you know me. That's how 99% of the people out there on LinkedIn and whatnot know me. That's not how my family knows me. And that's not what's on my license. That's not what's, when I sign documents, I sign my full name because I use my first name and Yvonne, my middle name. And, or I used to sign it with my first name and my middle initial. So I'm like, after you said that at our networking event, I was like, oh no, I joke about it all the time when I go to go have a procedure where they're going to put me under anesthesia. I will say to the doctor, do not call me that other name, because I don't answer to that name. The only people who use that name are the IRS in New York State. And so, I mean, now I'm wondering if that's something I should be worried about.
And it's fair enough. And there are other things within that. I'll just give you a couple more as food for thought for the folks that may be on here listening. Having your business address listed appropriately and correctly. I know a lot of people use a PO box for their business address because they don't have a physical office location. Well, I do 99% of my work digitally or by going to people's places of business and meeting with them there, going to network events and meeting with them in person. So I don't have a downtown office here in the metropolitan area. But if you list yourself as a PO box, it's something that business credit companies will probably flag and say, nope, not a real business. We're not going to provide them credit. One of the craziest ones out there, because that one we can kind of, rationalize and make sense of that from a logical standpoint, even though it kind of seems weird in today's digital era.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you want to talk about weird in today's digital era, when's the last time, Yvonne, that you used 411?
No,
Dialed 411 on your phone?
I don't think
Yeah,
I've ever. No,
I
a
think I
long
did
time,
one
maybe.
time.
Maybe,
For
yeah.
me, it's one time, yeah. And it was not this
Okay.
millennia for me. Going way back to the high school days, I remember using it one time when I was traveling. I want to say it was probably for either football or wrestling, one of the sports I competed in high school. And I wanted to look up pizza with my buddies when we were staying in a hotel
Ah,
room. And it's like you dial 411 and you ask for the number for the local pizza place. And I thought it was really cool. And then I got my bill later and I saw how much they charged me for my 411 dialing. And that was probably the last time I ever used 411. But it exists still today, which A, that was a shock to me when I learned it, that it's still around. And B, a bigger shock is that a large number of business credit vendors and lines of credit that are available out there will check to see if your business is listed in the 411 directory. And if it's not, they may deny you and say that your foundation is not appropriately built. So again, 125 checkpoints that we go through. When you talk about something when you're just getting started to make sure you do right, that's one of the things that's really, really important. And by the way, even if you're not just getting started and you've been in business for years, like a lot of your authors who are maybe doing this as a marketing arm for their company,
right.
this is still something that you need to be aware of so that you can have and utilize business credit to separate your personal assets from your business assets. And also as a resource, if you talk about your marketing, you're trying to grow your company, well, having available credit and capital to grow your company is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And it helps to solve that cash flow crunch that inevitably comes for every single business.
Yeah, that's so important right there. I think with people, and myself included, I'm gonna start a business. I have a really great idea. I'm going to get a DBA, or I'm going to file, I think, file for an LLC. And then, oh, I'm okay, everything's fine. But maybe not. They need to talk to you. They need to go through that checklist. We need to understand that sometimes you're just play acting at your business because you haven't really thought through these business necessity steps.
Absolutely.
And I
And
know you
I
probably meet
love
people
that
like
term.
that.
Absolutely. Well, I've met that person. It was me at times. And I always tell people, if I say anything that comes across as a little bit harsh or like, my gosh, you feel foolish for not having done that, trust me, I was sitting right there in your shoes not very long ago, and I'm still solving some of those challenges myself as I'm still learning every single day. And that's the wonderful thing about being associated with a team at J Galt is there are so many brilliant minds there. You mentioned people that are just play acting at business. And again, I've been there. There's a term that I've heard for it. We call them wannapreneurs. You're in business. You really aren't really in business. You want to have a business. Well,
Yeah.
getting that foundation established helps to clear that up right away and put you on the right track. And it's not easy, but if you do it systematically and get it done right, you're going to go from a wannapreneur to an entrepreneur, and then you have the opportunity to grow that business substantially. I know working with you and working with Tom that your authors, again, whether it's as their primary form of income or they're using it to support their business, are in great hands because, again, it's a tremendous industry. And I wanted to say at the outset, thank you for the kind compliments about the bio. I'm certainly no author, but I do consider myself a bit of a wordsmith. So hearing compliments from folks in your line of work, absolutely thank you for the praise.
Well, you're welcome on that, because that was one of the better, most well done bios, even in its completeness. So we can get into all the writing, but today we're talking about business, and writing is a business, folks. Even Chris does some writing in his business. So there is a business aspect to it, and you need to know when. So for instance, if we take that bio, And we look at it from the perspective of how is Chris going to help me, the small business owner? And I look at that bio, it gives me not only everything I need to know, but it also tells me a little bit about Chris as a person. And so it introduces me to Chris's business experience and knowledge, but also Chris, the guy who has the family, who writes really well and believes in the power of small business. So by believing in that and having that as something that's so important to you, when you like work with a small business, I assume you work with anyone. So you work with entrepreneurs who are just solopreneurs, and you work with anyone. So when we say small business, let's clarify that. What in your work is a small business?
First and foremost, I literally can help just about any business that's out there. So more of the time, what we're finding is our clients, have anywhere from just getting started to they're solopreneurs, but they have got their LLC with their EIN, because that is step one in being able to establish business credit. So that's kind of the foundation of where we start on the low end of the scale. But I've helped companies that are making multiple hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow.
So the high end of the scale, we can go up there. And what I found is the business owners that have built and established that level of success, they're just as excited, if not more, to hear about this because they understand it. And some of them are still personally guaranteeing. In fact, the CRO of J Galt Finance Suite, Ramsey Sarkees, recently spoke at an event down in Phoenix. And it was a room full of about 30 to 40 these business owners. The minimum requirement was that you're doing over $100 million in annual revenue.
Wow.
So a room of very successful business owners. So after he presented, just kind of like the presentation that you heard from me the other week, very similar presentation, every single soul in that room hunted Ramsey down and said, hey, we need to talk. There's something you said that resonated with me. You and I need to talk. I'm interested in finding out how J Galt can help me. Talk about proof in the pudding, right? If people that have a business that are that successful are practically hunting you down to sign up, then that tells you that we've got something important here. And I already knew that. I know Ramsey already knew that. And the team that I've got here at J Galt knew that. But I want to share that with you because as a young business owner, some of this stuff might not have clicked for me. I was going through those struggles and learning, and I had the luxury of having some amazing people around me that kind of continued to educate me. And that's what I want to do today. I want to be an educator as much as humanly possible. I often describe myself as a small business advocate. You mentioned that, right in the bio is a big part of it. That passion is real. It did stem from the time, observing what ADEC did for the community around us. It was really the linchpin of my small hometown. And at the same time, my dad was a real estate broker. I can't recall the number of times that I'd either meet, hey, that family who I sold them their house, well, they own that company right there on Main Street. Or in some cases, I joke my first job, and it was a really bad job, but my first job, if you will, my dad sold a piece of land that would become a development for a little tiny strip mall. It was kind of right on the main street, the main highway going through town, but it had a whole bunch of blackberry brambles on it. And not only did my dad sell that property, but he sold the labor to clear that property before development could be here. Now that labor happened to be me. So my first job involved a weed whacker and some bramble bushes and more than a few nicks and cuts and blood, sweat, and tears, if you will. But it was really cool because even to this day, when I drive back through that town, now it's been redeveloped since that time, but I still go that hillside right there, that slope that goes down into the creek bed there. I remember working on that, and I remember the businesses that went in there to this day. In fact, one of them was a classmate of mine's family who opened a restaurant there. Things like that really gave me an appreciation for just how centric those businesses are to our communities. When in fact, the recent study that came out from the White House now shows us that nearly half of all people employed in this country are employed by small businesses.
Yes, I know.
So we really know they are the backbone of our country.
A lot of them are women-owned businesses,
which is incredible, and we need more of those because by and large, women are better and brighter than me, and my wife is the shining example of that. The better-looking, smarter half of this of this business engagement here, I promise.
I'll tell you a story. My mother, in the 1960s, late 50s, early 60s, I don't remember exactly the year. She opened a small corner grocery store. And she became a small business owner. Now, that was pretty hard back then. She had to have my stepfather had to sign.
Great. Yeah.
Obviously, the bank wouldn't give her a loan if he didn't sign for it. And that corner grocery store became the place that I had to work after school. It became on Saturdays we go to the public market and pick up all the stuff, the groceries that she would need. And I would stock the shelves. And I didn't like it a whole lot, Chris. I wasn't fond of having to work in the store. But I look back now and I really marvel at the fact that here was this woman with these three small children and opening up this little corner grocery store because she wanted to be her own person. I doubt that she knew some of the things you know and are teaching today, but it really did leave an impression on me, I think, even though I didn't know it, even though I didn't realize it, because that was where everybody came. Everybody came to that little grocery store. We knew everybody in the neighborhood. We knew everybody's kids, right? And yeah, it was a different time. It wasn't quite as busy as things are today. But I'll tell you, going fast forward here and talking more about the necessities that people don't know about starting a business. So if a business owner, for instance, like a coach, I'm going to be a coach. I go and I get a certification or my study, and everybody says to me, "You're so smart. You taught me so much. You should be a coach." So I become a coach. What do I do after I get an EIN?
Yeah, I mean, from there, get with a good CPA, accountant, bookkeeper. Those are very, very important professionals. In fact, we love the fact that we get to work with so many amazing CPAs, accountants, and bookkeepers across the country because they love what our product brings to the table, as well as the member support that we provide in the back end. We build those great relationships. But if you're essentially in that case a one or perhaps a two-man show, one of my early clients for one of my other companies was a great husband and wife coaching duo, and they were phenomenal ICF coaches, and I loved everything that they did and their mission and the way they were driven and the way that they were helping kind of two different independent sects of people, but interlapping their coaching. Really important that you get your foundations established correctly. You've got your EIN, you want to go through that process of getting that foundation established. So making sure that you've got your business name appropriately registered everywhere, and that your legal name is spelled right, unlike mine, everywhere that needs to be. That if you don't have a physical location, looking for the ways to get that listed appropriately. And I won't get into too many of the details because it does vary community by community, but there are a lot of ways out there that can get that. Don't use the UPS store, I'll tell you that much. Not to besmirch them, they're awesome. But the UPS store locations and the way they list your address, most business credit vendors actually recognize that, flag that, and will basically veto that as not being an actual address for a business. Getting your phone numbers registered, having a phone number that's not tied to your cell phone. You can do something like Google Voice or, other different, voice over IP systems that are out there. Having a tech company that helps you set up that. A lot of them can do that pretty inexpensively in their brokerages, so they get pretty good deals that you and I can't get because they buy in bulk. Lots of different things like that. Again, 125 checkpoints that we go through, and we don't have time to go through all of them. And my memory's good, but maybe not quite good enough to remember all 125 without having a checklist in front of me either. So those are the kind of things that I would really recommend that you do. And then I'll kind of tell you what we do with our members next, because I think it's what a business owner should also be doing next. Once that foundation is in place, we talk to our members and we talk about where they're trying to go and grow. And we really look at it in that terms of ambition. If everything went right over the next 12 to 18 months, what would your business need? What would that look like for you? Maybe you don't have an office space now, but you need to have one. Maybe you need a recording studio to record podcasts and bring people in, that you need to be able to lease out some space somewhere. You probably, if you're like me and you use your vehicle, 99.99% of the time for traveling for work, it should be a company vehicle. I know that's not realistic day one walking into a business. And even for our clients and our members, it's not realistic in their first month to change their vehicle financing over because they don't have anything established on their business credit yet. So you want to start looking at what your goals are. You should have a company, a corporate fuel card. You should have your vehicle corporately financed because you're going to get better rates financing it as a corporate EIN entity than you can as an individual. By and large, and that's information right from the SBA, you'll get 10 times the credit limit as a business compared to an individual utilizing their business to finance it, again, straight from the SBA. So look at your goals and figure out what that might look like. So, that could vary for every single company and kind of their ambitions. Now, for your business owners that are using this as a marketing arm, it could be a myriad of different things. We work with people, I heard the term industry agnostic today, and I thought that was kind of a cool term. And we really are. We can work with people in just about any industry. There are obviously certain industries with legalities that we can't work in, unfortunately. Basically, if you're covered by the ATF, I can't really help you there. So no alcohol, tobacco, or firearms at the moment. And then the cannabis industry, which I know is legal in many states, but not federally legal, we can't currently work with because of the federal restrictions on banking. But outside of that, we can work with just about any industry. But what we know is that each industry and each business within each industry has unique goals and ambitions and needs. So you want to structure your growth appropriately to target that. The next step in terms of building business credit is kind of the chicken and egg dilemma. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Well, it's kind of that, we don't know thing. Well, you got to have credit to build credit, right? But how do you get credit to build credit if you don't already have credit? And it's this nasty dilemma. Well, we solve that problem on our end by having a handful of accounts and companies that once you have a certain level of that foundation built, they're going to get you approved. Now, in our system in the back end, we can see the full approval criteria for any of the 1,000+ vendors that we have in there. That's kind of part of our secret sauce. And companies like Uline, for example, is one of our favorite ones to mention. They work really well in a partnership with us. And if you're not familiar with Uline, they can get you anything from toilet paper to copy paper delivered to your door, delivered to your business's door.
I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, I was gonna say I still get a Uline catalog in the home that we moved into because the contractor that lived here before us had Uline catalog coming here, and it just keeps getting delivered, and actually kind of cool. I haven't had to register for my own. I keep getting that catalog and look through it, and there's always some things in there I'm like, ooh, that makes sense for the business. Ooh, that makes sense for the business. And if you buy those on credit through your corporate credit that you get established with them based on your EIN, and then you pay it off on time, and in fact, most importantly, pay it off early. That way, there's never a chance of the payment being late, because the number one thing that business credit vendors look for is, are you paying on time or early? The number two thing is, how are you using that credit line? So you want to utilize as much of that as you can. So buy the toilet paper, the copy paper for your office, the toner for your printer, whatever else that you might need, and you can get through companies like Uline and other vendors to get started with. Now, the other reason we use Uline, and this is really important, they report to 2 of the major 3 credit reporting agencies for business. So those 3 are Dun & Bradstreet, Equifax for business, and Experian for business. So Uline reports to 2 out of 3. And that's really important because you want to be building a credit history, building a credit profile on all 3 major reporting agencies, because as you move down the road, you want to make sure that you have access to all the different opportunities that are out there. So Uline's great because they report to 2 out of 3. But here's the truth. Less than 7% of all business credit vendors actually report positive payment history, because there is no legal requirement that they must. So it actually is incumbent upon them to do that to help you build it, but they don't really gain from it. In fact, in many cases, it costs them to actually report that. So in our system, this is the second piece of the secret sauce that we've got. Not only do we have their underwriting criteria, so we know for a fact that our members are going to get approved when they apply, we also know who they report to, as well as if they do require a personal guarantee, which, companies like Uline, when you're getting started, is one that, generally speaking, does not. If you have your foundation built appropriately, you don't need a personal guarantee, and they report to 2 out of the major 3. And we know what it's going to take to get you approved for a limit with them. And you start using it, building your credit, growing your credit, paying on time, you see your credit scores rise. We talk about credit scores. I think one of the important things to understand is that business credit is not the same as personal credit. So your scores actually range from 0 to 100. It's probably the only thing in business credit that makes more sense than the personal credit side to me, compared to that weird arbitrary 350, and up scale. And then we work our way. So for us, our members, our goal is to get them up to what we call tier 4 credit, or I often like to call it the business credit promised land, if you will. And that for us equates to a score of 80 or higher. Now, typically speaking, we're going to get members there in a year or less. And, again, they need to do their part, work the system. And, this is, we do as much of it with them and for them as we can, but there's still a commitment that the member has to do. One of the most important ones, as we already mentioned, again, pay on time. In fact, pay early.
Yep.
You got it. But once you're up to that 80 plus score, you have access to tier 4 lenders and vendors, which is open lines of credit, vehicle and equipment financing, real estate lease, and acquisition financing. Kind of the sky's the limit at that point as far as what you have. And then it just depends on how much amalgamated business credit you have available based off the recommendations, which is based off usage and timely payment. So that 80 score, I think, is a really good one for us to use, because I think most of us understand personal credit because it's been ground into us from the time we turned 18. 80 is roughly equal to about a 720 personal score. So a really good credit score that should open up the doors to just about anything else.
Awesome.
But yeah, and that actually brings up a really good point that maybe I didn't hit at well enough that I want to go back to when we talk about comparing business credit to personal credit. So personal credit, you turned 18, whether you knew it or not, you began to have a credit profile established for you by the credit bureaus out there. It just kind of happened automatically, if you will. Now, that does not happen in business, as I can personally testify to, because I had nothing for my businesses, despite, having several years of history for a couple of them. You have to be intentional about building business credit. And that's something that I think, when you ask what should business owners know, that's maybe the number one thing they should know. You have to be intentional about building business credit. It does not happen automatically. You've got to go out there and make it happen.
That's really great advice. So we have to get going, but before we go, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, how does all of this play into a global market?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So let's take a look at a big company that I think all of us instinctively know utilizes business credit. You mentioned the grocery store on the corner when you were growing up, and it made me think about Walmart. And I want to leave this story maybe for you, because this will talk about being able to play on a global scale. I think we all think and realize Walmart uses credit to build their business, just like every other big company out there, Intel, Google, Nike, you name it, right? What you have to think about is this. If you walk into a Walmart, and again, I don't want to besmirch Walmart. I actually, our corner grocer closed down in the COVID pandemic. Walmart's not too much further down the street. They have amazingly fresh produce and great prices. I love walking in there to shop there because I get what I need. It's healthy and it's cost effective for me. So kudos to them in that regard. But if you walk into that same Walmart store that I walk into, or any Walmart store around the country, and you look around you and you look on the shelves and everything in there, give or take about 80% of what you see on the shelves, Walmart does not own. They have it on some form of credit, on net terms, something of that nature, so that when I walk in there with my debit card, I swipe it or I tap it at the register and I buy my stuff. Walmart takes my money, they pull their profit out of it, and then they pay their vendors without ever having had to actually buy or own that product. They're leveraging business credit to build the largest retail empire in the world today. Now, that makes sense for Walmart today, but would you know that Walmart's been doing that for much longer, and that's been a huge part of their growth strategy, is being able to leverage and utilize business credit. So how does this play into a global market for you and for me and other small businesses with ambitions to grow? Business credit is the number one tool to solve the number one problem out there. When you look at businesses that failed over the last couple of years, US Banks did a survey, 82% cited cash flow as the number one reason that they failed. And in fact, almost 30% said they flat ran out of money. But 82% cash flow was their number one problem. Business credit helps to solve that. So you're solving the reason businesses are failing, but let's look on that growth side. Well, what's Walmart doing to grow their business? Well, they're leveraging and utilizing business credit and lines of credit. There is no reason that you and I can't do that, because the truth be told, we do is very, very simple. At J Galt, and this has been my philosophy as well for years, we want to take the power of companies like Walmart, those folks that sit there on Wall Street, and we want to bring that power back down to where it belongs, to Main Street America, because we truly believe there are better and brighter minds and more amazing and inspiring businesses on Main Street America than there are on Wall Street. So bringing that power back there, teaching people how to utilize business credit, is going to allow them to grow And it's going to allow them to be able to do business, not just here in the country where they can utilize those resources, but give them the opportunity in this interconnected international business world that we have. Because when you have the resources, your opportunities are endless.
That is so amazing. I never ever would have thought of it that way. Well, unfortunately, it's time to say, to finish up here. And I cannot thank you enough for this, because there were so many amazing gems and the information that you just shared. And this is just like a few of the bullet points of the checklist he has that you should contact him about, because I agree with you that small town small businesses, the corner grocery store, whatever it is, what coaching, whatever it is, we have the innovation and the creativity and everything. Now we need the power, and the power is exactly what you just said. And I don't think anyone has ever thought of it that way, or at least none of the small business owners I know think of it that way. So I'm going to make sure as many people as I know at least see this. So where can we get in touch with you, Chris, if we want to follow up?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, if you want some additional resources that dig deeper, and this is also where you can get in touch with me, please go to my website. So it's www.jgalt.io/COWEN. So jgalt.io/COWEN. There'll be the opportunity to download a complimentary ebook on there that's got great information. And then there's also a link to my calendar on there to schedule a quick 15-minute chat so we can find out, what you need to know. And from there, if there's a need to dig deeper and, offer some additional help, I'm there. I love the opportunity to educate and empower people. And I absolutely do want to bring that Main Street, the power that Wall Street has. So thank you so much, Yvonne, for having me.
Excellent.
I love the opportunity to make an impact on all those amazing business owners out there.
This has been amazing. I can't thank you enough. And I hope I'm still around when you're ready to write your book, because this just the stories that I think you can tell, and stories are so representative to all of us of, that's me in that story, right? So I think you have some stories that you could tell. But everyone, this is Yvonne DeVita from Smart Conversations, and we were listening to Chris Owen tell us the things about being in business that we never knew, but we sure know now. And I advise you to go to his website. All of this information will be in the blog post and on YouTube. And, think about talking with Chris, because it can't hurt. It can't hurt to have that conversation. Chris, thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.